Amidst a politically charged atmosphere, the United States House of Representatives has embarked on a historic journey with a narrow vote to impeach Alejandro N. Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary. The accusations leveled against Mayorkas include neglecting border laws and breaching public trust, marking the inaugural impeachment of a sitting cabinet member. Now let's turn to our fellow Americans as they share their diverse views and perspectives on this significant development. This segment will be hosted by political commentator Mr. Harrison Carter. Following their insights, we will hear from Judge Judgerston, the distinguished retired judge whose opinions carry weight among legal scholars and political intellectuals alike. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into this consequential event.
In a landmark decision, the United States House of Representatives narrowly voted to impeach Alejandro N. Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, on Tuesday. The impeachment, driven primarily by Republicans, accused Mayorkas of willfully neglecting border laws and breaching public trust. This move, which passed by a slim margin of 214 to 213, marked the first time a sitting cabinet member has faced impeachment in U.S. history. The Republican-led impeachment was largely seen as a critique of President Biden's immigration policies, particularly amid a surge in migration at the U.S.-Mexico border. President Biden denounced the vote, labeling it as unconstitutional partisanship aimed at a respected public servant for political gain. The decision came after a failed attempt by Republicans the previous week to impeach Mayorkas. While Democrats and various experts criticized the impeachment as an overreach and a misuse of constitutional measures, Republicans argued that Mayorkas had failed to fulfill his constitutional duties, particularly regarding immigration enforcement. Despite the House's decision, the charges against Mayorkas are expected to face significant hurdles in the Democratic-controlled Senate, where conviction would require a two-thirds majority. Critics of the impeachment, including some Republicans, have voiced concerns that such actions could trivialize the impeachment process and weaken its efficacy as a tool to address serious issues. The charges against Mayorkas primarily focus on his handling of immigration policies, accusing him of replacing certain Trump-era measures with policies that Republicans claim allowed migrants to enter the country without proper oversight. Democrats have countered these accusations, asserting that Mayorkas has acted within his authority to manage border challenges effectively. While the House's decision marks a historic moment, it remains to be seen how the Senate will respond to the impeachment articles. Regardless, the move underscores the contentious political landscape surrounding immigration policies and border security in the United States.
Here are the actual comments and opinions, curated from over 1,000 submissions. This is how America really feels.
Shame. They held the election today because tomorrow they won't have the votes. Shame. They voted to impeach Mayorkas rather than for the border bill that gives them everything they are claiming to impeach him about. Shame. Every single House Republican, save 3 who each have their own baggage, has lost the moral authority to lead. They must all step down, and because they won't, we must all vote them out. Shame.
The GOP has gone completely off the rails. With an opportunity to do something productive on immigration, they torpedoed their own bill. And now waste everyone's time with this hot nonsense. Republicans have no interest in nor capability for actually governing our country.
Mike Johnson says he is guided in his decisions by God. Wonder what God thinks now that Mike is taking his orders from Donald Trump.
If the alleged crime of failing to do your job is the impeachable offense here, then 214 House Republicans should resign en masse. Aside from humiliating the U.S. and themselves to ensure the criminal defendant has immigration as an issue to run on, what else are these clowns doing?
How did we get to a place where our national legislature is one-half totally corrupt and of absolutely abysmal moral character, and a certain fraction of those are stupid as well? And how did we get to a place where one-half of our presidential candidates are deranged, totally corrupt, of abysmal moral character, repeatedly criminal, and stupid as well, except for purposes of evil? That's the real issue. Trump himself could be a fluke. When half of our state and federal legislators are like this, it's not a fluke, it's a sign of a very deep sickness in the system.
Political theater with a pretense of governance. What a colossal waste of taxpayers' money. What a waste of time and taxes, the stupidity of it all. Right on brand for the GOP, remember in November.
When you elect clowns, expect a circus.
There are no Republicans left. There are only slaves to Donald Dictator wannabe, only autocrats, only democracy destroyers and Putin lovers left in what once was the GOP.
Disgraceful on the part of the Republicans. Their only goal in life is to obstruct.
America used to be a great country that others aspired to learn from. It used to be where many of the world's innovations were born, including good governance. Now the country is a reality TV show and the audience is cheering for the player whose personality they like most, regardless of the player's actual contributions to the team. In fact, there now seems to be an increasingly inverse correlation between outcomes and popularity, where the people contributing the most are also the least popular. Across all three branches of government, including the courts, it seems acceptable now to support those who are the least competent.
My outrage at the ever-growing un-American vitriol in Congress just grew larger. This impeachment vote that blatantly ignores all constitutional standards is, pure and simple, un-American and disgusting. It makes me want to vomit. The entire Republican Party should be expelled from Congress.
This will teach that dangerous lawbreaker Mayorkas for breaking that law. The one that you know what I mean, it's scandalous. We can't let him get away with breaking that particular law. Again. Sort of, maybe. He should be fired on the spot for his dangerous if slightly ambiguous law-breaking. Alleged. He is putting the country at real risk of something or other and needs to be held to account for it, whatever it is.
The two impeachments of Trump did not lower the bar. In fact, they were the only two in U.S. history to get senators from the impeached officer's party to vote him guilty. Nancy had prevented several impeachments prior to Trump's first, but had to do something when Trump tried to cheat in the 2020 election by strong-arming Zelensky with his perfectly corrupt phone call. Why was she hesitant to impeach Trump? Because she knows it's ultimately just a political exercise, and if it's not for good reason, it will backfire. Bill Clinton, for example, became more popular after his impeachment. This impeachment will backfire too, especially after the House GOP blocked substantial immigration reform because their dear leader ordered them to.
The House of Representatives has ceased to become an effective governing body. Instead, it's morphed into a showboating theater of the absurd, monkeys and clowns jumping madly from one circus ring to the other, egged on by criminally indicted treasonous, prevaricating carnival barker. The Senate seems poised to follow, teetering with the slimmest majority in name only, instead hidebound by arcane rules that give the minority party veto power over anything that might be perceived as a win by a democratically elected president, regardless of how much benefit could accrue to our citizens or the security and well-being of this nation. I've never been so appalled, dismayed, and betrayed. For all of its faults, I've lived most of my life believing that my country would heed the call of its better angels, and decency, justice, and respect for the common good would prevail. It's incomprehensible to me how easily those elected to serve this country would jettison the sacrifices of our forebears and march us over a cliff.
How do Republicans intend to fix our country's immigration problems? Not by funding ICE properly, not by passing laws that they say they want to pass, but by wasting time and effort to impeach a cabinet member whose hands have been tied by their inaction. These impersonators of legislators need to be voted out of office, and real legislators need to be voted into office.
The major thing that was impeached today was the credibility of the Republican Party.
As soon as Tom Suozzi is sworn in, there should be an impeachment vote on Speaker Mike Johnson for his dereliction of duty in preventing the bipartisan Senate immigration bill, which he demanded as top priority, from being voted on by the House. Trump is infamous for projecting his own failings, for example, womanizing crime, corruption, onto others. It seems he is now the Messiah Johnson gladly follows, with a broken moral compass which hopefully will lead 214 Republican House members and Trump into the electoral wilderness on November 5th.
Take a good hard look at the Republican Party. Tell me it isn't controlled by Donald Trump, who is being controlled by Putin. The Republican Party shenanigans would be laughable if it weren't for the fact that so many corrupt Republicans' lives will be drastically altered when a Democratic supermajority runs America. Look for Supreme Court impeachments and criminal charges for literally dozens of congressmen and senators. History will reveal the greatest criminal probes in political history over the next few years. Don't be surprised if former politicians aren't charged, convicted, and hanged for treason, if history is any indication of future possibilities. Just wait until it is proven that Trump traded secrets that cost American lives. It is going to get a whole lot more dramatic. In 5 years, the likelihood on any Republican making the slightest positive comment about Trump will be as likely as if we were talking about Hitler. Society will change that way. Can't anyone see that?
Wow, pretty strong comments. Now let give the final word to Justice Judgerston. Good morning, Your Honor.
Larry Drummey was an elementary school bully. When I was 12 years old, most of us feared Larry. He was put back a couple grades, so he was bigger than all of us. His parents had money. Larry's bike was a CCM 5-speed red Mustang bike. Back in the day, that bike was hot. Very few had a 3-speed and had multicolored frills. Larry bullied his way around the schoolyard and everyone got out of his way. After a few months, he got even more brazen. He would tell the teachers off. He never did homework and routinely fired spitballs at the teacher. One day, a new teacher showed up halfway through the year. She was a tiny elder woman. Her name was Mrs. Mayorkas, and she spoke with a soft, deliberate voice. In history class, Larry fired a spitball at Mrs. Mayorkas, just as she was turning around from writing on the blackboard. The spitball hit her in the eye, and she fell onto her chair. But she had noticed it came from Larry. This diminutive woman walked up to Larry and grabbed him by the ear and jerked him out of his chair. All of us students were amazed to watch her drag him out of the classroom and down the hall towards the principal's office. There was an announcement over the PA that all students were to remain in their desks and in their classrooms until further notice. All the classroom doors were opened. The entire school was silent, as we all focused on what sounds might come from the principal's office. Suddenly, you could hear the principal in an angry voice yelling at Larry. There was silence. There was a loud snap. Right after that, we could hear an excited wail coming from Larry and then screaming and crying. But it didn't stop there. The principal gave him several more straps, each one evoking a loud wail. Then it stopped, and there was sobbing. Slowly, the teachers resumed their classes. After about a half an hour, Larry returned to class and sat in his seat. None of the students dared look directly at him. After a few minutes, I noticed Larry pee his pants. The entire class stared at him. He then started to weep softly. In a few minutes, the class was dismissed. Larry never returned to class. Many years later, I was at the summer amusement fair, and while I was in line at the Swiss Bob ride, I noticed Larry. He had become a carnival worker. He was extremely skinny. He was covered with tattoos, and he did not look healthy. And he did not look like a bully. He looked like a pathetic loser. I thought about Larry from time to time as the years went by. I felt sorry for him. When Trump came onto the political scene, I thought of Larry Drummey. They were the same. I recognized Donald Trump for exactly what he was. There is a parallel here. There is a day when all bullies get their due. Donald's is coming soon. He will fall from grace. He will lose everything. He will be humiliated, the likes of which nobody has seen before. If I may use a common phrase from the man referred to as the Orange Jesus. But he won't have much time to suffer. In my opinion, there is a very good chance that evidence will surface that connects Trump to some form of treason. It may take a year or more, but there will be serious investigations. And I believe that during these investigations, evidence will surface that good, hard-working American men and women were hurt, possibly killed as a direct result of some form of treasonous activity. The evidence will be overwhelming. The American public will summon a sense of national pride and universally condemn him. Hitler killed himself, and in doing so he deprived the world of the spectacle of his judicial punishment. Some say Trump would be too much of a coward to kill himself. Instead, he will play it up, and on the final day, on his judgment day, Fox News will report that more people watched the spectacle than attended any inauguration in presidential history, that the crowd was bigger than any rally Trump ever hosted, and that it was such a spectacle, bigger than any the world has ever seen. When the oubliette is pulled and the mask drops, then suddenly, as if by miracle, newspapers had no more exciting stories to print. The Capitol returned to normal, two-party philosophical dialogue. Bills began to get passed, and America will move on.